standing ovation out of the way at the beginning. Thank you. I believe in you as well. And I love you as well. Thank you. You know, it's been unbelievable. And being here in St. Louis, I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. People saying, we're glad you're here, we were wondering if you were here. And some people may be surprised to see me, but to quote Mark Twain, the reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. Or for some of you even better, to quote the Mississippi Mass Choir, I'm still here. Seriously, as everyone knows, I wasn't in Orlando, but instead was home taking care of my family. I actually spent about 2 months doing that. I was on leave of absence as my wife was in the midst of a difficult pregnancy. And I'd like to thank the 5 Links management team, who are the best in the industry, along with the employees. Give them a round of applause. For stepping up to take over many of my responsibilities during that period. I'd also like to thank the field leaders for keeping production going, and all of you for being so understanding in my absence. Shortly after the event on January 19th, William III made his appearance. He's a true blessing. He's a true blessing. And I'm very proud of my wife, Nikki, for making all the sacrifices she did to ensure that he was healthy. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, Nikki and I are both very competitive by nature. We're often asked which of us he looks more like. And the truth is, both of us secretly believe that the boy is a carbon copy of us individually. So I thought I would share this picture with you and have you judge for yourself. That's me on your left, him on the right. That's right. There's no denying that he's that boy here. We can create that picture and say she regrets it every day since I show it to everyone. Well, I'd like to say hello to Nikki, who will be watching this on video, and to our other children, Glenn, Brittany, and Danny, who will also be watching. I love all of you very much, and thank you for your support. I'd like to start by telling you a story. There was an elderly woman named Martha who had led a very good life. So good that one day God appeared to her. He explained that because of her good works and character, he wanted to do something for her. You don't have to do that, said Martha. I have everything I need. But God insisted. So Martha thought about it and finally said, well, you know, if I could win the lottery, I could leave a nice legacy for my children and grandchildren. God said, it is done, and disappeared. A week went by, but Martha didn't win. A month went by, still no win. Now Martha was getting a little annoyed. Soon God appeared to her again. Hey, she said, I've been looking for you. You came to me and asked me to tell you what I want. When I told you I wanted to win the lottery, you said, consider it done. But I still haven't won. My precious child, came to reply. Work with me here. Buy a ticket. You see, even when we're truly blessed, we still must put in some effort to make our goals and dreams come true. And sometimes it's tough. I believe genius in Five-Links has infinite capacity for pain. And sometimes you feel as if you're enduring your trials by yourself. So I want to give you a little history lesson that will hopefully reassure you that the challenges you may be facing are no different than those faced by anyone who is going after their dreams, especially those of us who are around at the beginning of Five-Links. In the early days of the company, we had to beg people to take us seriously. We had very few vendors, and potential new ones typically wouldn't return our phone calls. Those were the tough days. We usually drove to meetings because we typically couldn't afford to fly, and we couldn't afford hotels either. So we would drive for 2 to 6 hours, do the meeting, and then turn around and come back the same night. I left Albany, New York, or New York City, or Beltsville, Maryland at 9:30 or 10 at night countless times. We didn't have energy drinks then, there was no fuel. So once your coffee or soda wore off, things got tough. Only someone who's done some serious late-night driving can relate when I admit to many cases of swerving to avoid the imaginary animal that I thought suddenly ran out into the road. I know Kurt and Tupac know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes we would call each other to help stay awake, and usually the topic of conversation was how bad the meeting went. But we had no choice but to keep going. I remember the time Jason told some leaders he would take them to dinner after the meeting, and they stopped with him at the ATM so he could get money, and he had to turn around and apologize and tell them he couldn't take them because he didn't have enough money in his bank account. There was the time that Jeb had to deal with the drunk heckler at his meeting in Pittsburgh, who tipped over chairs and tried to fight him. Or the time when I asked a small group of guests at my meeting to raise their hand if they knew someone who was overworked and underpaid. One guest who was annoyed because I had earlier asked him to hold his questions until the end said, "Yeah, I know one, you." I wasn't always as low-key and patient as I am now. So in response, I said, "Yeah, but I'm getting paid. That's the difference between me and you." And I can't forget the time when I got a call from a leader I knew in a prior company. We had both moved on, and she had heard that I was the top earner in Five-Links, which was true. She was very frustrated because she was only making $23,000 a month in her new company, and was looking for me to help her take her income to the next level. We had a great discussion and things were going very well until she asked the question I had been dreading. "So how much are you making?" Now I probably could have come up with something witty like, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," which certainly would have been true. But that really isn't me. So I told her the truth. $3,000 a month. She said, "Oh," and then quickly got off the phone, and I didn't hear from her for more than 7 years. Or how about the time Jeff drove 12 hours to Kentucky to do a meeting for the son of an industry leader? The kid promised that his dad was joining Five-Links, and that they were going to bring thousands of people with them. This first meeting was for several hundred of their national leaders. When Jeff got to the hotel, he learned that there was no room reserved for the meeting the next day. Surprised, he called the son but got no answer. He was able to reach the dad and ask him where the meeting was going to be held. "What meeting?" came the reply. When Jeb explained, the dad apologized profusely. He told Jeb that he didn't know about the meeting and he had no intention of joining Five-Links. Unfortunately, his son had mental health issues and hadn't been taking his medication. Jeb got back in his truck and drove back to Rochester. Now those are just a few examples. We endured it all, and like the song says, we're still here. On the corporate side, long-distance phone service died out while it was our primary product. We switched to local phone service, became our largest agent for our provider, and then they went bankrupt. We lost our credit card processor at a time when we only had one. That meant we couldn't enroll representatives or customers. 99% of companies would have gone under due to that, but we're still here. We were wildly excited when we got a nationally renowned expert to do an infomercial for us, a very recognizable name. He was generating leads for the company, and then we watched as he basically stole the money and provided almost no leads. Many companies would have folded during that time. Instead, Jason learned the infomercial business very quickly in order to fulfill the obligation to our representatives, and all of the leads were provided. We had a highly edified founder lead. Then we had some top leaders come to a national event and then leave shortly after. We had a problem with our energy service provider, which created major issues for the company. Now, many of you think you already know about those challenges because they just happened. But I'm not talking about last year. That was the second time those things happened. I'm talking about the founder who left in 2002, who none of you have ever heard of, or the leaders who left after the National in 2011, and the energy issue from 2010, when our chosen provider decided to become our competitor a week before the announcement of our energy launch, and almost killed the business before we even got started. Obviously, all of those were major issues, and many wondered whether the company would survive. Well, we survived them not once, but twice, and we're still here. I have to admit, though, the last 8 months have been a challenge. I remember brimming with enthusiasm shortly after becoming CEO. Those of you who were at the September National recall that I quoted the poem, "Still I Rise" by Maya Angelou in my speech, and that became a rallying cry. Thanks to the efforts of our staff and leaders, we had an amazing event, and all of us left on an incredible high. But the storms that had already begun kept coming. It seemed that when we solved one issue, another popped up, and not just from circumstances, but from people as well. Now I know what Jody Watley and Rockton meant when they warned us about Friends nearly 30 years ago. While some of you are marveling at how I can reference Maya Angelou, Jody Watley, Rockton, and the Mississippi Mass Choir in the same speech, I'm a bad man. Suffice it to say that after several weeks and many storms, I was not always in the same positive frame of mind that I was when I quoted Miss Angelou. One day, Jason and I were discussing one of our storms, and I was giving a less than optimistic assessment of it. Now, as some of you know and just heard, Jason is the eternal optimist. And in response to my comments, he said, "What about I Rise? Did you forget about that?" Now, for a split second, I wanted to show him exactly what he could do with his I Rise. But the problem was, those weren't his words. I was the one who quoted the poem. And although I could come up with all kinds of reasons why I was justified in the way I felt, I couldn't shake a definition, my favorite definition, of commitment. Doing what you said you'd do, long after the mood you said it in has left you. And so this became a test of character and commitment. And the first thing I realized was that very few leadership teams could have survived what we have over the last several months. And then as I thought about the responsibility I had to continue to show resolve, I thought about the commitment, loyalty, and dedication shown by our leaders. I know we never would have made it without them. I want our advisory council members, platinum senior vice presidents, and senior vice presidents to know that we value and appreciate you, and we don't take your commitment for granted. Let's give them a round of applause. We're still here, and while that's great, our commitment has to be to thrive, not just survive. And there's a lot to be excited about at Five Lakes. Over the next few days, Sam Zeitz and his team will begin to outline their vision for the future, and I'm sure, given the collective skill they brought together, it will be significant. The one thing I'll say is that the day this deal was signed, Five Lakes became a debt-free company with the financial backing of a team of highly successful, high-net-worth entrepreneurs. But for Shad, our new president, we'll have more for you today, and you'll hear from Sam tomorrow. But for me, the parts of the business I most enjoy revolve around people. And I can't talk about exciting things and committed people without talking about my friends in Haiti. We launched Haiti due to the advocacy of Lisa Cloud and Tupac Duranencourt. Now, as everyone is aware, we've had tremendous success with those of Filipino descent. Let me hear from our Filipinos. That success in the U.S. translated to great results when we launched the Philippines. However, while we have successful leaders of Haitian descent as well, Haiti doesn't have the population of the Philippines. It doesn't have Mexico's population as well. So there was a lot of skepticism of the markets we planned to launch. Everyone assumed that Haiti would be last in production when they were all operational. Well, you know the cliche about what happens when you assume. We had a small but committed group of Haitian leaders who were determined to bring opportunity to their country. So despite all the skepticism, they went to work. And I love an underdog, so I decided I would work with them on the Haitian expansion. I went there 3 times in 4 months. Now, a lot of people in this country have a negative view of Haiti. And sure, when you go there, you see abject poverty. That's the poverty you would expect in a country where the average person makes $1 a day. But you also meet good people who are used to overcoming obstacles. And most importantly, you meet people hungry for opportunity. For our first meeting last April, the experts said we would be very fortunate if 200 people showed up. They were amazed to see nearly 2,000 in the room. Given the success of the first meeting, I decided to go back 6 weeks later. This time, I did a meeting with Platinum Senior Vice President Dignan Morris in the Dominican first, and then went to Haiti. For reasons related to logistics and safety, I decided to charter a plane. Ricardo Bluthwaite, the GM of Haiti, and PSPPs Julio and Marlene Daniel, who were in the DR as well, and had a team developing in Haiti, were joining me on the flight. And the entire trip actually cost less than coach tickets from the U.S. So it seemed like a good deal. When I went on the website for the airline, I saw all kinds of sleek, modern-looking, good-sized planes. I assumed we would get one of those. There's that assume again. The first indication that I might not be correct was when the pilot came into the office and saw the bags we had and said, "This is a lot of luggage." It must have been the 6 or 7 bags that Marlene has that made him react that way. But the fact is, he was surprised by all the luggage, and I was surprised by his appearance. He not only looked like Nick Nolte, but he looked like Nick Nolte after a very rough night. Then we went out on the tarmac, and my gaze settled on the smallest plane I have ever seen in my life. Let me show you how small it was. We had to get in by climbing up on the wing. And the seats folded forward for the people to get in the back, like in a car. And believe it or not, I had to keep my door open on the ground, even while we were moving, because that served as the air conditioner. When I sat down, here was the view from my seat. Yes, that is the airplane equivalent of a steering wheel right in front of me, and yes, it was moving while we flew. I won't even show you what looked like the brake and gas pedals by my feet. That was a nerve-wracking flight that seemed hours longer than it really was, but we made it. The funny thing is, those types of challenging experiences often become some of your most memorable as well, especially when they lead to success. The Haitian team rewarded our commitment with another meeting of 2000. I went back 2 months later for the launch, where 1,000 plus joined our newest Platinum Senior Vice President, Robinson Cecil. And Kathy Boyce, who has always done all the logistics for us. And former Haitian national soccer team player, Jean-Blair Altidore, who now has a huge organization in Haiti. Along with many other leaders on a 90-plus degree day at a location that was tough to get to, we actually passed a riot or a demonstration or a disturbance on the way there. I don't know what it was, but Dr. Ricardo said, we're going to turn around and go the other way. But we were in a building with no air conditioning. And it didn't matter. The crowd showed tremendous excitement. That was truly the beginning, because thanks to the U.S. leaders I mentioned, and many more, just because I didn't mention your name, I know and we know your commitment. Plus Haitian leaders like Lindsay Vince, our first Haitian SVP, and Judson Jean-Louis, and Jeffy Robert, and Windsor and Renette Morel. We have now grown to the point that we will promote 14 Haitian SVPs this weekend. Well, I got a question for you. If they can do it in Haiti with all the obstacles, what's your excuse? There are always reasons to be discouraged. There are always shortcomings to focus on, both personally and with the company. But you've heard me detail numerous challenges that have been overcome, both long ago and in the recent past. That's probably only 10% of what we've successfully handled. We now have a team in place that has the financial resources, experience, and expertise in all of these areas to lead this company back to prominence, to allow it to surpass its past greatness. The question is not whether that will happen. The question is, where will you be when it does? Now, I know where I'll be. A number of you have expressed concern about me and questioned what my role will be now that we now have our new partners on board. And I appreciate the concern. It's gratifying to know that I made a difference. Let me say, I love this company. I love its people. And as long as I can meaningfully do so, I'll be here to contribute. You'll recall that earlier I mentioned the lady who I didn't hear from for years. That's not the end of the story. You see, it may have been 7 years later, but eventually she did call, and she joined 5 of us. Why? Because I'm still here. That's just who I am. See, I'm a good salesman, but I'm no J.C. Duck. I understand comp plans and promotions, but I'm no Jeff Tyler. I may not be the presenter that some of our platinums and diamonds are, I don't understand accounting like Mike Barron. I can't plan an event like Denise Nowak. There are lots of areas where I'm just good at best, but I do know a little something about leadership. And I can tell you over the last 8 months, I've looked in the face of the obstacles and the adversaries and the problems and the challenges. And I've said, I will not go away. I'm still here. I imagine very few of you heard a woman named Araminta Hall. Araminta was a hero of her day. She found her purpose early and dedicated her life to carrying it out. Araminta fought against insurmountable odds, with her only weapons being faith, courage, and belief. And she always won. Now you're probably thinking, well, if she was so great, why don't I know who she is? And to that I would say, there are many, and each of us can be one by doing the best we can with what we have. However, Araminta's story may be helped if I say that she got married in 18. And shortly after, she started going by Harriet Tubman. Harriet, now stay with me here. Harriet freed herself and then made 13 trips back to. And along the way, she faced everything I talked about, except her penalty for failure was almost certain death. She dragged some people to freedom at gunpoint because of the risk, their desire to turn back folks in the group. Escape was unsuccessful because her own brothers refused to continue. But she had much resolve. She later escaped without them and had success freeing others. That her and growing legend gave her brothers the courage to join her on a later trip. Now stay with me now. Imagine that. Her story and her success gave others the courage to follow in her footsteps to freedom. See, that's what you can do. Let your legend blaze the trail for others to follow to financial freedom. Lead others to freedom. First, you must be free. There's a statement often attributed to Harriet Tubman that goes like this. If you are tired, keep going. If you are scared, if you are hungry, if you want to taste freedom, keep going. If you want to taste freedom, keep going. I said, if you want to